Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Trade the Chain. It is February 10th, and we're glad you could join us, especially with today. We had a little market correction early in the morning Eastern time, but all seems to be faring out pretty well today. We're going to try something a little different. Just look at the pricing, maybe with the top 10 coins for everybody. Just go over it. Looks like here we got on the Trade the Chain dashboard. And this is going to be our little input before going into all the deep dive TA with CJ and Monty, our crypto analyst from marketrebellion.com. As you can see, folks, we have Bitcoin today hovering around the 45,000 mark, and that is important because that is where CJ and Monty pointed. We need to stay above to have that blue sky going upwards towards 50,000 and upwards towards 60,000 after that. We have Ethereum, we're at 1738 right now, thereabouts, looks pretty good. And then one that we're gonna highlight today after the big boards is Cardano, ticker ADA. It has been on fire and it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, but these are all good things right now. CJ, I'm gonna hand it over to you guys and let's go into the big boards after the plugs.
Yeah, you added a search bar to the top of the CoinStream page. That's
you
awesome.
Noticed.
That's awesome.
Well, you remember how you were scrolling endlessly when we'd go to the sentiment?
Yeah, I can't imagine what it was like watching that. Just a reminder that none of this said on Trade the Chain today is financial advice and should not be construed as such. We do these videos for your entertainment and educational purposes only. So just want to be clear there on that disclaimer. Trade the Chain is also brought to you by Trade the Chain, an AI-driven sentiment indicator and actionable alerts to help you beat the market. Now in every single time zone in the world, except for Antarctica and like the South, maybe the moon, I don't know. But definitely check this out. You guys can get a 14-day trial and you can see the sentiment dashboard that Alex was trying earlier. Weston Nelson is the proprietary trader over at Trade the Chain. He's had some nice ideas as of late, so definitely go check that out and at least sign up for the trial because there's a ton of really good information on this dashboard and within the chat and the Trade the Chain community. But moving on to marketrebellion.com/crypto. With this, you get exclusive access to Monty and I's trade insights, our macro portfolio allocations, a pro charting platform, a trading education curriculum, and an elite community of traders all throughout the world, and much more. If you're serious about trading crypto, this is the service that gives you everything you need all in one place. You can start your first month trial for just $1 at marketrebellion.com/crypto. Both of our communities have grown quite a bit. We appreciate that, and we're looking forward to going on this cryptocurrency journey with all of you throughout this market cycle. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do that and go ahead and hit the like button down below. That helps us spread this information to as many people as possible. But starting with the big boards here, you can see we have Bitcoin on the 4-hour chart. And in our live member webinar that we just did, Monty and I, we're noticing a lot of patterns, a lot of similar things going on specifically with these support levels on not only the Keltner channels, but also the Williams alligator. Typically throughout bull trends and run-ups in these bull markets, we use the blue line or the midpoint as a very strong support level. You can see that's what we did all the way up throughout our recent run-up. And it's very promising to see that we're actually finding some support and potentially a nice little bounce from this level. So something that's very nice and something that's been seen across the space if you're using the Keltner channels. This is same true of Ethereum, as well as a few others that are high up in the market cap. What I want to go to as well on the weekly chart, we talked about this 45K level, but as you can see, this is approximately exactly where the top Bollinger Band is located. And so we're looking to close above 45K in the next 4 days and 5 hours specifically. If we can close above 45K on the weekly chart, I believe we're going to have a blue sky breakout territory all the way to 62K because there's really no resistance Other than possibly the 50K resistance level being a round number. It's a psychological barrier to some of us. Other times we just go right through it like butter. I remember when Bitcoin was $1,000 or was reaching $1,000, people were like, "Oh no, this is going to be such hard resistance. Like it's going to take us forever to get through." But we went up to like what, 1,400 in a day. It was absolutely absurd. So very important here that we close the week above 45K and above this top Bollinger Band. If not, there could be some trouble. And, we're going to be monitoring that very closely.
Thank you, CJ. Not to rain on the parade, but Mr. Short is here. And I'm just going to, I totally agree with what CJ said, right? I mean, those Bollinger Bands on the weekly chart, they're so important. And we're really seeing a nice battle here between the Bulls and the Bears at 45K. But I'm going to go ahead, being that I am Mr. Short, I'm just going to quickly provide a scenario like what might happen if we get rejected here at 45K. What might happen if the Bears take control like they did right here when we were at 40K. I think it can actually be a very similar outcome. When we hit 40K and we kind of had this period of just a parabolic run up, some pretty ridiculous candles here that led to this all-time high. It was followed by a period of a somewhat sharp sell-off here, and then a period of just this descending triangle of somewhat consolidation. We talked a lot about how we were bouncing off this setup support around 30K. We alluded to the honey hole many times, this zone of accumulation right below 30K that kind of kept Bitcoin's price afloat. And now I'm expecting a similar outcome. I'm expecting price to kind of significantly dip here at first, this to continue, but then for us to kind of consolidate above this 38K level. I just don't see us having the momentum to break through 45K right now, given that so much of the price action has been dictated by news-related events. I think we're going to kind of hover around this area between 45K and 38K for maybe a week or two until we get another piece of news that drives price up, another catalyst for price action. But right now, I just don't think that the Bitcoin trend has enough momentum to break above the resistance that we're seeing at the 45K Bollinger Band level. So I'm expecting another similar period to like we saw here, just above 38K. And that's my outlook.
Yeah, one thing, if you don't mind, Alex, I'm sorry, but I only really examined the bullish case. Monty did a very good job of examining the bearish case, but I just want to say it's essential to have a plan for both scenarios, and so that's why it's important to examine both sides. Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think I always love it when you guys are not necessarily in agreement on something. Because I like to hear the bull and the bear in both of you. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to play a little tiebreaker. And I am going to, really start moving towards the side of Mr. Short right now, because on the 1 hour projection we've dipped from what's been a very neutral to slightly high sentiment indicator with Bitcoin, and we're now traveling to the lower sector. This daily sentiment score went from about low 60s, now dipping into 57. You can see the price action is dipping. Also, the relative trading volume is starting to move down a little. And I think we're coming off the MUSK effect a little, and we're starting to consolidate and go down. So I'm in agreement with Monty on this one. I think we're possibly going to go to a 38 level before pushing up.
And that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, right? I mean, we're extremely overbought right now. The euphoria can sometimes kind of create this inflated price point. I think it's healthy for the market to kind of level off and some of these technical indicators to kind of cool off a little bit.
Well, first, I'd like to point out we're not ganging up on CJ, guys.
No, let me be clear. What I was trying to say earlier is that if you don't have a plan for the bullish or the bearish case, it's not good. Like, you have to understand what you're going to do regardless of where price goes. And I think Monty's outlook on the bearish price and creating a higher low at 38K, that's very likely. But that's going to be dependent on whether or not the trend can close above 45K on the weekly chart. So I think there's an equal possibility for going up and for going down. I think you guys make a good point with the bearish case because we just had a short squeeze. It's so funny. Musk loves doing the short squeeze on the Tesla bears. Now he's doing it on the Bitcoin bears. Love it. But when you have a short squeeze and all the shorts in the market, everyone who is bearish has to buy the stock back. There generally isn't a lot of buyers left to step in. We're at such parabolic levels. I think a correction to 38K, if it does occur, would be very healthy for the trend, and I would have no problem with it.
I also like to see shakeouts of weak hands and profit takers too after a sharp incline up. So, you know, that's just one of the reasons why I think it's going to go in that direction to the 38K. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, to Monty's point. I think it's just going to be a stronger consolidation for its next run up in CJ's favor. So,
I mean, we all want it to run up. It's not just me.
Nobody's wishing for it to crash down.
I know. Let's get to Ethereum. Man, such a similar state to Bitcoin. We were just checking this out. But looking at the Keltner channel, we're finding that midpoint support on the 4-hour chart. Very promising from that bullish perspective. I also want to show you guys that it's doing the exact same thing on one of my other favorite indicators for locating not only the overall trend, but also support and resistance levels, and that is the Williams alligator. And you can see, all right, we're getting a little bit of compression, but still, we're bouncing off that nearly identical midpoint range as the Keltner channels. So very nice sign thus far. And if we look on the weekly chart with Ethereum, we can see that we're almost in an identical phase with Bitcoin, except the 45K level on Bitcoin isn't the equivalent to Ethereum. I think Ethereum's equivalent to that is probably the psychological level of 2,000, being a round number. But ultimately, we have a blue sky breakout above the top Bollinger Band to a price of roughly $2,225. And yeah, those are the critical Fibonacci levels. And we're going to be watching those closely to see if we continue breaking out. I'm bullish on Ethereum, but a lot of it's going to depend on this weekly chart and how things shake out. So it's important to be flexible, keep an open mind. This market is very, very fun.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement here with ETH. I just want to take a step in and look at the daily chart here, because I think really a lot of the next week might be decided in the next couple of days here, because we're at a pretty critical point here. We have this setup support or resistance line at 1745, but we also have this 1, 2, 3, the green 1, 2, 3, kind of implying that the trend may actually continue. And I think it's encouraging that although we wicked below this setup resistance, we kind of bounced back up above it. So what I'm looking for is for this tomorrow's daily candle to continue this trend, be a green 4, and hopefully close in this green zone right here between 2K and above, most importantly, above this 1745 setup support line. I think if it can do that, it's setting itself up very nicely to continue this trend and smash to the 2K level. Like CJ said, I'm also very bullish on ETH. I think technically speaking, just looking at this chart, the way it's continually setting these higher highs and these lower highs as well is a very encouraging signal here. And also kind of what we talked about yesterday, where ETH is less reliant on a news-related catalyst to drive price up, because there's so much interest in a lot of these DeFi assets right now. The success of any one of them can be critical to some price action for ETH. So I think there's a lot of things that can drive ETH up, and the technicals are in place to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to come in third here again. So I can't disagree with either of you. I think ETH has had a good run. It's going to continue to have a good run. Also, you know, just checking in on the daily sentiment, we're a little down right now, in line with ETH's price, but our long term is bullish and our daily is bullish. So I feel like it's going to take a rebound up. I'm also believing this a lot because if you look at the sentiment to price chart here, we have sentiment and price correlating exactly, and it's just a little bit ahead of when the price movements happen. So if I'm seeing the bullish sentiment on the daily or the very bullish sentiment on the long term, I feel like that's the momentum direction that we're going to hit. So I'm in agreement. A lot of price movement left in ETH, and it's still going up.
Very interesting. Alex, that site, is it available to the public or does it require payment? I saw it was the TIE.
It is not. So what I will show real quick is we have our dashboard. And so this is where the trade the chain, all the data comes in from the social analytics and stuff and produce a score on sentiment data. And we are partnered with the TIE, which provides us with all this data scraping, AI and API feeds that go into that dashboard. And so this is just a graphical of sentiment correlating with price that we put together directly from the TIE.
Beautiful. So this is the trade the chain data graph
Yes.
of time. That's a beautiful visualization.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it really ties it all together. It's our sentiment equivalent of alligators and Bollinger Bands.
Now to our next asset that's been very hot, ADA. And what I want to show here before we get into the technicals is Monty's trade insight that was occurring 2 days ago. Or wait, no.
That was last month, actually.
Last
so
month.
yeah, that's if you look at the price point there, it's 29 cents.
But yeah, the entry was at 29 cents. And if we look on the chart here, we can see we've gone pretty much parabolic ever since that entry level, which was down back here. So if these are the types of trade insights you're interested in, please check out our service because we provide them on a weekly basis. And some of them have been pretty big winners, like Monty's right here. But anyways, get to the ADA chart. Beautiful looking bands below. We've seen that we've used this top level as support multiple times during the overall course of the market cycle. Now, this is a pretty bearish candle, and it's concerning because it's occurring at the top of an uptrend or very close to the top of an uptrend. Being said, we're still in very bullish territory with ADA. As the collective market continues to increase, things like Link and ADA are increasingly correlated to Ethereum. And I want to look at the weekly chart to see where ADA is just before passing it off. But bullish territory, no reason for me to sell as of now if I was holding ADA. And we're still above that top band. So, thoughts?
Yeah, I will. Let me quickly. I remember when I made that trade. It was a long time ago, obviously, but I remember what I was kind of thinking when I made that trade. I was looking at the daily chart, and I was just kind of taking a look at the sort of upward resistance levels that we are seeing with Cardano. And we've talked in the past about how there's such a tight correlation between Cardano and ETH. And there's a lot of similarities, not just in utility, but I mean, Charles Hoskinson, co-founder of both, and the founder of ADA, but there's just so much in common between the two. But the one thing that wasn't similar was the upward resistance levels. I saw much less upward resistance with Cardano than what I saw with ETH. That was back. So if you compare the two, right, they both increased significantly. But when I published that trading site at 29 cents, ETH was actually around 1,500. So although it was breaking all-time highs and looking very bullish, and ETH did continue to run up to the levels we're seeing now, Cardano obviously saw a much more parabolic run-up since that time. And I think that's largely can largely be attributed to, one, like I said, the lack of upward resistance, but two, just kind of how much Cardano appeals to the retail trader. We talk a lot about how when you're kind of moving downstream with crypto, you'll get higher beta the farther you move down the chain. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here with Cardano. Retail traders saw the comparisons, saw the similarities between Cardano and ETH, and became very bullish on it. And they both saw bullish price action, but it was just more extreme with Cardano because of the price point and because of the higher beta that's just inherent with lower cap cryptocurrencies. So very bullish for Cardano. And really, there's no reason why this trend can't continue. CJ did point out that we're kind of looking bullish on the shorter time frames, but there's now solid support below at 66 cents, more than double where we were at a month ago. And I think this trend can continue based on the fact that I think ETH is going to continue with its bullish price action. So congrats to anyone that's been holding Cardano for the last month, because it's been a great performer.
Yeah, no, Cardano is definitely been a hot topic in the communities. I'm sure both with yours and ours. A lot of people looking for, their evolution of things to come, especially as it has to do with Ethereum and gas fees and certain other structures. I'll just point out real quickly the price correlation to sentiment chart here. So you have the sentiment in a solid blue line, and you have the price in a dotted blue line. And what you'll see right now that's happening is they've had a great correlation throughout from September all the way to now. And then you see that chart, what CJ and Monty were looking at, you have a price shooting up right now. And so you have some price action to the bullish side. But you go over to the sentiment and you see that the short term, very short term 1 hour is dipping low, heavy weighted to the negative. But that doesn't seem to be slowing it down, because long term, very bullish. The daily, the intraday, very bullish. I think you're right. I think this thing just keeps going up, and I don't know when it stops. Any ideas from a fundamental point of view? What's going on here, CJ or Monty?
So these are correlations between Ethereum and the various assets that we have as well. So one of the highest correlations that we see in assets to Ethereum is Chainlink. And one question that I kind of want to pose to you guys, and I don't know if there's a direct answer, but when you look at other utility platforms aside from ETH and ADA, we have TRX, we have EOS, but why has ADA outperformed so many of the other platforms? I don't know if there's a direct answer, but when doing a sector analysis such as this, it's somewhat interesting. And as we can see, the longer the time period we go out, generally, the higher the correlation becomes.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's no exact answer to that question. But one thing I think is probably a large contributor is just the fact that it's Charles Hoskinson. I think his ties with Ethereum kind of led to an extreme correlation between the two, right? And I don't know exactly when we're going to see a reversal. It's hard to kind of pinpoint it, but one thing that I think is going to be a telling factor is 100% the sentiment, because this has been an asset that has been largely driven by sentiment, because like you said, CJ, there isn't really much reason that Cardano should be more pegged to Ethereum than some of the other utility platforms, right? But I think if you looked at the sentiment, it's pretty obvious that the retail trader is more bullish on Cardano. So what I'm going to be looking for is kind of a cooling off of the daily sentiment, and eventually a cooling off of the long-term sentiment. I think the 1 hour projection is largely due to some of the technicals that CJ was looking at the 1 hour chart. But once this kind of dips below 50, I think that's when we might be approaching a top. But for now, as you can see, very bullish. So yeah, I really think sentiment is going to kind of be one of the most telling factors going forward for Cardano.
Yeah, and touching on your point in sentiment, I encourage you guys to read the book Narrative Economics, because it shows that narratives drive prices much, much more than we initially anticipate. And cryptocurrency is a wonderful example of that, because it's a narrative of people coming together to subjectively value this, new thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
crowd valuing. You're spot on. By the way, that's a good book. I actually really enjoyed that book. Read that some time ago. But it is very true, especially when you need, in crypto, you're trying to aggregate all the indicators you possibly can, whether it's through technical analysis, whether it's through sentiment analysis, because largely the fundamentals are void in the space for the most part. So very cool. Instead of me saying, hey, Ryan, what do you got for news for us today? I'm going to say, hey, CJ, what do you got for news for us today?
We have Jack Dorsey, well, not Jack Dorsey, but the Twitter CFO claiming that they're considering not only adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet, but also they were talking about they are getting closer to implementing the ability to actually pay employees in Bitcoin if they choose to receive Bitcoin as their salary. You know, this isn't a huge surprise to me considering Jack Dorsey has been one of the biggest Bitcoin bulls. He's got it, of course, as the only word in his description on Twitter. And so this is not a huge surprise to individuals like us in the space, but I think it was a real wake-up call when we saw Elon Musk buy Bitcoin to a lot of people, a lot of retail investors who have maybe been hesitant to buy cryptocurrency, but ultimately seeing that people can receive their salary in Bitcoin and choose to is a pretty monumental metric because it shows that it's real, right? People say, oh, you know, no one will accept Bitcoin. You can't pay your taxes in Bitcoin. You know, no one get paid in Bitcoin. Those concepts are changing. And, you know, we're coming around to kind of a new paradigm.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And a lot of people are just saying like, oh, this is kind of just the next domino in the chain of institutions that and corporations that are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. But really what stood out for me is kind of how this is not only them putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet for the long term as just a store of value, but also they're using it as a genuine utility to pay their employees and pay their vendors. I think that opens up a whole new reason for these major corporations to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. If you look at, I mean, obviously Facebook has Libra, but I'm just going to use this as an example. There would be a huge utility in Bitcoin on Facebook. So it would make total sense for them to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And in fact, it may become something that is just the status quo, is keeping Bitcoin on your balance sheet in order to have it as an option to pay vendors or employees. So yeah, that's big news. It's nice to kind of see these huge companies like Twitter, like Tesla, talking about putting Bitcoin and using Bitcoin as part of their business model.
Yeah, I think Monty, to your point, it is super cool that they're talking about utilizing Bitcoin just not for the balance sheet, but for payments of vendors and paychecks of employees. And it actually made me think when I saw this news today, guys, that we could be all wrong from our yesterday's episode where we picked, where there was Microsoft thrown out there was something else thrown out there, and then there was Walmart thrown out there. I think this is maybe, this has nothing to do with the old guard. I call those guys the old guard. I call Twitter, I call Square, Tesla. Those are the new guard, the younger, vibrant companies. I didn't even think about it yesterday when we were talking about this, that, hey, Jack is head of both, and Twitter could be the next one. Now I think that's probably within a realm of reason. I think it's going to, these young bucks, as they call them in the tech world, are literally going to drive the pressure to the old guard to do it. And I think it gets down to more than balance sheet value. It gets down to utilitarian use, as you said, Monty. So absolutely. CJ, anything else to add?
Square's already done it. They already bought 50 million and they're a subsidiary owned by Twitter. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me as well. As Monty said, it's a domino effect and we're at the beginning of it. I'm so excited. I was talking to my dad yesterday and I'm like, I wasn't expecting Tesla or companies like this to jump into cryptocurrency for another 5 to 10 years. But the fact that they're doing it in 2021 is just really exciting for anybody who's been in the space for, 3 or 4 years. So,
we don't have time to catch up on it now, but what you mentioned earlier with Facebook and Libra, it's not even Libra anymore. It's it has a new name. Nobody's even paying attention to it anymore. What happened to the project? we're going to have to do an episode where we're going to do a little investigative searching and speak about that, because that really got lost in the wind after coming out with such a power play 2 years ago, and now it's not even a news cycle. So we'll see what happens, folks. Thanks for joining us. Oh, wait, CJ's pulling up some news real quick. He found the name.
Ad blocker. Anyways, they're calling it DM. That's all I wanted to say. They're calling it DIEM instead of Libra. I don't know.
Oh, like Carp Diem or something? Carp Diem?
Seize the day.
Diem?
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, CJ, for that. Hang on to your handlebars, and we'll see you tomorrow again. Same time, same great place. And thank you very much for joining us for today's episode, folks.
See you later.